Well, I wanted to say thank you for doing this podcast episode.
Of course, of
I'm really
course.
excited. So just for context,
Thank
I
you
guess
for
I should,
having me.
yeah, you're
Thank you
welcome.
so much.
I should probably say for context, you came on my radar because you had, well, Bitcoin Policy UK. So I'm one of the co-founders of Bitcoin Policy UK. We had joined the 𝘁𝗹𝗻𝗱𝗲 Bitcoin program to become one of the nodes. And we've committed to teach 50 kids, I think it is, in the first 180 days of being part of the program. And that was how I came to know you because you are the designer of the program. So I would love if you could just give an introduction of yourself. And then I just wanted to delve a little bit into how you got involved in this whole thing and what you do and your background and everything else. So I'll hand over to you to formally introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you so much again, Krista. I feel very honored to be here. Um, no, I'm Dalia Platt, and as you said, I'm designing the Bitcoin curriculum for my first Bitcoin or for 𝘁𝗹𝗻𝗱𝗲 Bitcoin. And the truth is, I've been doing this since 𝘁𝗹𝗻𝗱𝗲 Bitcoin began, I believe, in 2021. And I was lucky enough, it was a very convoluted story of how I got there. Before I started, well, let me go back a little bit because I I used to be a teacher. I used to be a math teacher and a math tutor, a math teacher, and a physics teacher for 25 years. And that's really not even my background, doesn't matter. But I was exhausted. When the pandemic came, I was dead exhausted. When I do something, I do it full time. And I said, I can't take this anymore. And that's when I started learning about Bitcoin. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I was listening to a podcast that that Greg Foss was being interviewed in. And I didn't know he was anything special or anything like important or anything like that. And there was
Do you
something
mean
he
you didn't
said.
know that Greg Foss was a Bitcoin celebrity?
Zero. Like I didn't know anybody. The truth is I was just starting to learn Bitcoin. And I'll tell you later because Bitcoin was tough for me, but later we'll talk about that. But there was something he said about education and Bitcoin and his grandparents being immigrants. I don't know. I liked what he said. And he was talking about default credit swaps, and I'm an engineer from like before. I don't know. I just liked him. So I wrote to him. I'm like, I'm going to write to this guy. I don't know. Maybe I can help in any way. And he immediately wrote back to me. And because of him, he introduced me to somebody in El Salvador who introduced me to my first Bitcoin that was just starting. And he got me into Locobandz, that's his educational platform, and I started working there. And truthfully, that's how I began. I
Oh, so
never
you began your journey in Looking Glass.
in both of them. But
Ah,
truthfully, I do very little for Locobandz. I've learned so much from Daz and Seb. You have no idea. All my financial education background is really from them. And I think that the diploma has a lot of information that I learned from them. I learned by doing. I didn't know it. I don't know how to write. I wasn't a Bitcoin person. I just was put into this by, by, I don't know, because there was nobody else to do it. Somebody said, somebody needs to write a Bitcoin diploma, and I just happened to be there. I just happened to I said to myself, I'm going to give myself a year off, and this opportunity like came up. And at the beginning, it was like four of us trying to contribute. But then after like the first version, everybody else left, and it was me. So I continued doing this.
sorry, so just to ask, I didn't want you if you don't want to dox yourself, but so you're not based in El Salvador. Where are you based?
No, I'm in Florida. Uh, um,
you, why did I didn't, for some reason I just thought that you were based somewhere in Latin America.
Well, that's another story. That's why I started liking Bitcoin. I'm from Colombia. I'm from South America.
Right.
But I've lived in Florida for 25 years.
Ah, okay.
So no, I didn't know anybody. You have no, like, it was just, I was working from here and they were there. And I'm like, what do you need? And they're like, we just need a curriculum.
Curriculum.
I'm like, I only, like, I don't have the experience. I'm just learning about Bitcoin. And what I seriously, if you look at the first version, I am so embarrassed of it that you have no idea. I'm like, and then like it's been a process. It's definitely been a process. And I still don't know enough about Bitcoin, but I've been learning.
Who does
I
though? Who does, right?
true, true. But it's been a wonderful journey, and oh my God, I'm
But
so lucky to have to have met the people that I've met, and to be working with that organization, and to have seen the growth, and to see the beginning of the changes that are happening in El Salvador. Like, I'm so happy. Like, for the first time, I'm like smiling, seeing changes, because I didn't know if the diploma was actually making a difference. And in the last maybe 3 weeks, I've seen that it started to make a difference. And up to then, I didn't. I'm
so
like,
can you talk about, so how long did it take you to design the first curriculum? And then how was the rollout in El Salvador? Like when did that take place? And like what was the process of doing that? And I
they
guess
told
also,
us,
I'm curious to know what the involvement of the Salvadoran government was. Was that a government driven initiative or was it completely grassroots? Right, grassroots.
no. Okay, so John was the founder, John Denick, he's the founder. And he said, you need to design this in 2 months, in 2.5 months. And we're like, what? Design it and publish it and have it printed in 2 months. So you can imagine how good it was. So we tried our best. We really tried our best. So it was good enough. No, it absolutely was not anything. It has nothing to do with the government. John had moved to El Salvador maybe 6 months prior, uh, and because he had heard that El Salvador had made Bitcoin legal tender, and like he just wanted to change the world. He has his vision is extraordinary. So he had already began bringing in people to his organization, and they were just doing introductory classes. They would bring like little meetups where they would bring people and just teach them how to use wallets and how to use Bitcoin. And that was probably about all they were doing until or like an hour class or something like that, but they didn't have anything formal. They just had, I think they started with a class of 4 people, then I don't know, grew to 400, and then we've grown to 10,000. And it's been like that expanding, and like it grew like that in a year. But the diploma didn't exist. The actual diploma didn't exist. So when we spoke to him, there was a school. At that moment, we had got contact with 𝘁·𝗹𝗲𝗃, and they had contacted a specific school that was very forward thinking, and they wanted to be taught. They wanted to be taught the program, and they said, let's bring some kind of a program to us, and we'll teach it to the students. So that's, I think, how the idea of a diploma started evolving. So we like John came back and said, we have to design some kind of a program. And we designed the program, and we graduated that first class of students with that first version of the diploma. So it was a 10-week program. So we called it the diploma. It was a 10-week program, and we graduated 30 kids in that first school. And we gave them a
Sorry,
diploma.
when was that?
April 2020, 2021. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somewhere in 2020. When was the Bitcoin conference in Miami?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think it was May. Maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, I'm
Okay,
not
so
sure actually.
maybe in September 2021.
Okay.
It was like maybe a few months after that. So we graduated the first class. And after that, we started, I don't know, getting into other schools, and we didn't even have teachers to teach the diploma. Like we didn't have anything. We had 7 people working in the organization. We didn't have money. We still didn't have money until 3 months ago, but that's a different story. Uh, it's been a journey, to say the least. So again, it's really been, I don't know if you've seen that it's been like right now, I am almost done with the 5th version of the diploma because I'm never happy. I'm really never happy. Like it's not good enough. To me, it's not good. I work on this 24 hours a day. I'm like, no, this is not good. So I keep going and going. And I'm like, so now we decided that we're going to publish one every year.
Okay,
And
that's a good idea. Yeah. I mean, I think it's good to improve it as you go along anyway, because everybody's still on their journey and learning. And the whole point of learning is that knowledge shouldn't be static. So I think that's great. But I mean, I've had to flick through the book and it's great. I mean, it's fantastic. And I think it's so important, I think, for Bitcoin adoption and for people to sort of learn the skills to have a standardized program. So I was really excited to discover that this thing even existed and that it was being rolled out, and that El Salvador was actually trialing it. So we knew that kids had gone through the program and it had been successful and they graduated through it. So I think it's a really, really phenomenal initiative. I mean, it's so great. It's just so exciting to just see how it's evolved. So can you talk a little bit about the scale of it then? So you've done like the program in El Salvador. So do you even know how many schools have done the program?
For that, you're going to have to ask John because I have no idea. I really have no idea. I know that fine. We've been growing now, like school-wise, we're now in some universities also in El Salvador. And now the government of El Salvador took our program and officially used our program to design. They have like a little, they have like a module that is like a financial literacy and technology module. So they designed within their module a Bitcoin section because they want their students, of course, to learn Bitcoin. And that Bitcoin section is based on our diploma. And they used us as their consultants. And they're going to roll this out. We're going to be training them next week on this Bitcoin portion. And it's a very big deal because now we're part of they're seeing us as the organization that is training the students, the people in El Salvador. And that's humongous. We were nothing. We were nobody. And and I'm like, wow, somebody actually thinks we're something. And the truth is, I really think it's not good. But now that we have all the international people helping us and it's open source, now it's when it's going to be good. That's my vision. My vision is for everybody to have input on it in the activities. I know you've seen it, and nobody that's listening to you and I have seen this, but my vision is for every one of the nodes to contribute so that it can really become an amazing program. Because for now, it's my activities, and those are not good. Those are okay.
really
But
wish you'd stop me so self-deprecating. It's like you've basically standardized Bitcoin education, rolled it out globally.
okay,
It
so
is
let
good.
me take
Name
it
me,
back.
name me one other person that's done that. Out of the
Let me
thousands
take
of
it back.
Bitcoiners across the world.
Okay, let me take it back. They're good, but they can be amazing. It can be amazing. Like we can perfect that. We can make that amazing because the mind up, like when I started realizing what open sourcing, like the energy of open source, the amazing potential of open. What I'm trying to say is that since we open source the material, I've had, for example, the teachers from El Salvador, from Honduras that have already taught the diploma, and from Oregon that have taught the diploma. Just with one time that they have taught it, the amazing feedback that they have given me, like two people, has just made it better. It's just, that's what I'm trying to say, is that like the collective will make it so much better. So let me not self-deprecate. I work really hard, but it will be better with the notes.
Okay, but yeah, I understand what you mean. It's like hive mind. I guess you'll get all the feedback and the thing will be iterated. But I mean, inevitably, it's going to evolve over the next few years and kind of grow. Could you talk a bit about the node structure? So for people who don't know, we obviously approached you, or I approached John and said, my incentive was really to understand better how to deliver this program somehow to teachers so that we could scale it across the UK. But can you talk a bit about where this idea came from of having these regional nodes? And we should specify that they are human nodes as opposed to computer nodes. But can you talk a bit about like where that idea came from and what its purpose is and its structure?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So, uh, so the focus right now is El Salvador, but our mission is the world, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to focus on El Salvador and perfect everything in El Salvador, but open source everything, not just the program, but all of our eventually when we get it done better, all of our systems. We're trying to make systems so that it can be copied all over the world, and we can actually make a difference. And it's not really about Bitcoin, but about giving people the like allowing people to have self-sovereignty, really changing the world. Like we want to change the world. And we think, well, that can't be done with just us alone. So we thought of ourselves as the Genesis block. And we thought of those who want to help us as our nodes that are going to help us. So, like you, some people were very interested in starting the diploma and they just reached out to us. And they were very, like, it was people that had our same vision, people that were not takers, people that were just wanting to help. And we want we want an organization with like-minded people. We want an organization where we just want impartial, free. We just really want to change the world. So those specific people that had already like reached out to us, we already kind of knew the personality of those types of people. So we said, like, our first goal is to have, and we already have like 18, 19, 21 nodes by the end of the year. And because the program has been growing, it's been growing in Canada, it's been growing in the UK, in Africa, in Portugal. But we want it to be standardized. we do want it to have quality. We want to have quality control, and we don't want just anybody to be able to certify somebody with the Bitcoin diploma. We want to have a very solid education. We want to be serious. We want to give people financial education. It's not about Bitcoin. It's about giving financial freedom. It's about sovereignty. It's about letting people decide for themselves. We don't want to shove Bitcoin down people's throats. We want for people to decide for themselves. And that's the type of people we want to associate with. So we just, like I tell you, we just want to take our Genesis block and replicate it around the world and keep growing, but grow at a slow pace. We'd rather grow slowly, but with quality education. And like I tell you, not just the education, but eventually we want to open source all of our systems as they start developing in El Salvador. It's really an amazing thing what's happening in El Salvador. It's just the first country to have this as legal tender. So every time I go there, it's like life is so much different from the first time to second time to third.
Is it really? Can you describe that? Because I haven't been to El Salvador yet. So can you talk about what changes you've noticed there? So I think they made Bitcoin legal tender in September 2021, if I remember rightly. And so when was the first time you went, and how has it evolved with every visit?
So the first time I was there was for that first graduation. So was it September 2021? So maybe I was wrong about the graduation. So maybe I'm saying April 2022 might have been the graduation. It was after after Bitcoin became legal tender.
Okay.
So I might have told you, oh my God, already, it's been very, very little time since we've had already more than, 40 graduations, 50 graduations, I don't know how many. But I came for the first graduation, which was right after Bitcoin had become legal tender. So then let's say May or June, July of 2022. Truthfully, nobody was using Bitcoin, nobody. And when you spoke to people in the streets, the regular people in the streets would say, absolutely, I'm not downloading this. This is fake money. They're scamming me. They're everything that you hear from everybody else, that you hear everywhere else. And the 𝘁宜wallet, which is the government's wallet, was really just starting, and it had a lot of glitches. So there was people losing the government had incentivized people to download the 𝘁宜wallet, and the government was giving everyone $30 in Bitcoin so that they would do that. And some people were losing their funds or not getting them or hacked. So it was a little bit of a disaster. It's the beginning of a completely new system. And the other type of mentality is that they were also thinking, they also had a change of legal tender. I don't know how many years ago, but they had a change into the dollar being legal tender some years ago. And they had a very, very high inflationary period right after that change happened. So people were with that mentality, we're having a change in legal tender, and then we're going to have another inflationary period right now. So they were I guess it was more of an anger, they didn't want to know anything about it. And as time went on, two things happened. First of all, there's been a lot of international interest in El Salvador. So there's like so much investment. So that's made the country like start to develop. And it's a third world country. So in my opinion, that's gonna generate employment, and it's generating education. It's generating, like, it's just making the country develop in many senses. And second, because of the education, for like, this is just what I'm starting to see right now. Small businesses are starting to accept Bitcoin. First, because the international people are coming and demanding it. And second is because we're starting to educating, and not because we're demanding it, but because they're starting to understand the value of Bitcoin. There's like a week ago, there was, I wasn't there, but there was a festival in an island that used to be like, I cannot tell you what island was. I know that it's an island where there's a lot of soccer. Like, soccer is the main thing in that island. Like, I think it's a very underdeveloped island. And there was somebody called Quentin that came into this island and has reformed it, and has, like, it's become a circular economy with Bitcoin. And the little enterprises, like, there's some teachers that you just get chills, because they teach the little kids to use Bitcoin for the right reasons. They teach low time preference. They teach. So the teachers were telling me that they were asking the little businesses, like tiny little businesses that are on the streets, are using Bitcoin, and why. And they were so excited. Yes, I'm using Bitcoin. I just sold my 10 shirts, my 20 shirts. And look at this, look at my wallet. And this is an island that had nothing before. And like, that to me is progress. And that's just like in a tiny island. And in El Salvador, in like in San Salvador, in the capital, you also can see everybody is accepting Bitcoin. Not that everybody's using it yet, but it's like, you're starting to see people not just using the 𝘁宜wallet, which is the custodial wallet from the government, but people starting to use non-custodial, starting to understand. I don't know, I just see development. I see a difference. And the remittances, like the fact that they're using it for remittances and saving so much money. So
yeah, wow.
I see hope.
Yeah, definitely. That's really fascinating. When you go there, like, how much time do you typically spend on each visit? Are you there for a long period of time? Are you kind of just briefly?
No, truthfully, I've only been there, 3 times? For the first graduation, for the Bitcoin conferences.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I would be there like long. This time I'm going for the next Bitcoin conference for longer, because I really want to have the opportunity to train the teachers for longer, and to have like in person. It's so hard to train teachers, as you see, virtually. And I haven't had that opportunity before. So, and we haven't had that, like, I've never been able to tell anybody in the world what my vision with the curriculum really is, because I developed this workbook. But for me, the workbook is not the curriculum. The workbook is not what the curriculum should be. Like, it should not be taught like that. To me, that the workbook is just, let's leave it on the side, and let's teach interactively. Let's teach in an easy way. Let's teach in an engaging way. So I would love to be there more. I would love to go all over the world more. And
Do you know how many schools right now in El Salvador are actually teaching that curriculum? Like, do you have an idea also what percentage of the total it is? Because I'm just wondering if they're implementing this at universities, then presumably they would want all the schools to do the same at some point. So I'm just curious as to what the penetration is across all of the establishments now.
I really feel horrible telling you, like I feel awful, but I really, really don't know. I know that we're starting the pilot program for all the public school systems to it, like all of the public schools, to start teaching it at the beginning of 2024, because we're training the teachers in September 21 is the beginning of the training. So it's gonna be human, like that's gonna
Wow.
scale tremendously. Again, not through our entire program, but we're like the consultants to the Bitcoin portion of the program. We're
Yeah.
teaching the teachers our program that we're doing. The teachers are not teaching the students our entire program. I don't know if I make myself clear, but we're teaching the public school teachers, all of them, our program. Um,
Interesting.
so that's for the entire country, for the whole country of El Salvador. And also one of our teachers is going right now to Mexico, to the biggest, I don't know what it's called, to the biggest university in the north of Mexico. They want the program to be taught there. So that's, I don't know, they have, I think, 4,000 students there. I don't know how many students are going to be taught starting this year. So it's growing. It's growing. We don't, truthfully, we don't have the capacity to grow as fast as they want us to grow. But that's why we need you. That's why we need our
So
help.
it's a good problem to have, right?
Yes, yes,
So they're doing
yes.
it in Mexico as well. Is there any activity? Because if Jose from IBEX has been involved to some extent, is there anything going on in Guatemala as well? Do you have any nodes there?
In Guatemala, I believe not yet. We are, oh my God, I feel so ignorant because I'm always stuck just doing curriculum that I'm not even aware of where we are. I'm not kidding. I'm like so involved, like so stuck in here. We're in Honduras, we're in Mexico, we're in uh, Chile, we're in Argentina. Um, we're not in Colombia, which is where I'm from, and that's where I wanted to change the world, because there's so much poverty and so much need in Colombia.
So I guess two
And
things really, because you've mentioned changing the world quite a few times. Can you describe to me what you mean by that? What change would you like to see?
I've always believed that there's a lot of inequality in the world, a lot of inequality. And we can go into the why later. Like I grew up in a country of a lot of violence and a lot of precisely like the uh, and I think that part of the violence was because of the inequality, because the people that had nothing sometimes had to kidnap and kill, and they had to survive, and they had no access to education. Um, and I've always thought that was so unfair. So therefore, I think that if there was a change in that, there would not be that kind of people would not grow up like I grew up. If people had access to education, they had access to being able to develop as human beings, and they would have the same probability of moving forward as anybody else. You just need to educate people in order to give them you just need to give the tools to people, uh, and they can move forward is what I'm trying to say. But when you're not giving education, you're then you're already telling people you cannot move forward in this world. So I think Bitcoin solves, to me, Bitcoin has taught me a lot of things. It's taught me not just about Bitcoin and not just store of value, but it's taught me about self-sovereignty, and it's taught me the like I know I'm changing the subject a little bit, but the Lightning Network as a payment rail is a phenomenal idea for Colombia, for example. Um, there's so many unbanked people, so many unbanked people. And if I don't think that people in a first world country would understand this, but for people that don't have money and they have to go and actually take cash from where they work to where they live, it is a 3-day process because they have to go in buses. They have to risk being robbed. They have to go in, take off their shoes and go on a mountain that it has mud, and they have to be covered in mud. Like, that is not understood by anybody. But if Bitcoin was implemented with the Lightning rails, that wouldn't happen. Like, you could send money back and forth in a millisecond. So just Lightning Network, saving even 1 penny. Like, we've talked about this about 𝘁𝗶𝗲𝗲, that it's really difficult to teach about low time preference and saving. But at least I tell them to at least save 5 cents a day, because they really they make a salary and they have to spend that salary in their family for that day. They don't have that money. Like, some people don't understand that, but save 5 cents a day. Like, start having that type of habit. And I think just little changes like that will make a difference in the long run.
Interesting. Do you feel comfortable talking about your background in Colombia at all? Do you want to touch on that?
Sure, I have no
Yeah.
problem. Sure, absolutely. I don't know if you're familiar with Pablo Escobar. Oh, so I lived in the city where he was born, like was living at the time of Pablo Escobar. So there was extreme violence so there was mafia, there was the mafia, there was the cartels, the drug cartels, which was Pablo Escobar, which was the Medellin cartel and the Cali cartel. There was the guerrillas, which were the anti-government group. There was poverty, like extreme poverty. So the people that had no money to live on would join like the guerrillas or would join anything so that they could survive. And I've always felt that when you're born, it's just like flipping a coin. You either are born lucky or you're born unlucky. I was born lucky. I was just born lucky. I could have been born with 0 cents. I could have been. I was born in a family that was able to give me education, that was able to give me travels. So, but I was looking at that from the perspective of having a lot and those who had nothing. We never, my parents taught me never to show off or anything like that. But I lived through, what can I tell you, but like my kidnappings, my cousin got killed. It was very traumatic. Every day my dad came from work, and when he would come home, I was so relieved that he was not kidnapped that day.
Wow.
The day I decided to come to the States was a day I was living by myself in Bogota. I was studying industrial engineering in Bogota by myself. And I was alone in my apartment, and my window suddenly exploded from a bomb that was placed from the Medellin cartel to the somebody in somewhere else. I don't even remember, in a shopping center. Who lives like that? I said, I just can't live like this. But my parents still, like, things are not like that anymore. I love Colombia. My parents live there. I would love to live there again. You don't know how much I miss my family, my friends. But I came here. I ended up meeting my husband, who I'm so thankful for, and I'm married 25 years. So he's American. My kids are American. I can't go back and live there, but I go there so much. But it was a very traumatic growing up. And throughout that time, I really, really always thought about the injustice of I'm like, this, the government, you pay taxes, the government would steal the taxes. So they wouldn't give anything to the poor people. They would say nothing was handed out to anybody. Like, everything was stolen by the government. Nothing would become better for impoverished people. Their life would remain exactly the same. So how can life become better if there's no education?
Can I ask why your parents stayed there? So, like, when you left, was there not an opportunity for them to leave, and why didn't they, or did they just want to stay because it was home?
Colombia's just amazing. Many people want to stay. My parents, thank God, would have had the opportunity to leave. My dad loves living there. My mom would have come in a heartbeat because now all her grandchildren are here. But I don't know. It's just like you see, like, I'm painting the bad parts of Colombia, but you can never replace the people. You can never replace some of the quality of. I cannot tell you, like, the I cannot describe Colombia until you go there. And no, they wouldn't trade it for the world. Like, I'm telling you, I would go back and I would take, like, when my kids were young and the situation was not as bad, I took my kids knowing there was a little bit of danger, but not as much as the one I lived. I took my kids every year to Colombia because I wanted them to have a little bit of my culture. I didn't want to lose that. And they loved it. They like, I knew where to take them and I knew how to keep them safe. But I can't let go of that. And my parents can't let go of that either. Now they're getting older and it's tough. And I wish they would come here, but they won't. They love I wouldn't either.
Yeah. How has the situation changed in Colombia then? Because you said it's not like that anymore. So what was the difference? What changed and when?
Well, the drug cartels ceased to exist because Pablo Escobar was killed, and then the Cali cartel dismantled, and some people were extradited. So the bombs ceased to like, the bombs were horrible. The bombs, like, they would kill thousands and thousands of people a day, and, like, in the middle of like, you would just hear an explosion, and it could be.
Who were the bombs directed at? I mean, were they directed at other cartel members or citizens?
Wars. It was wars between groups of people. It was wars between very very I don't know, potent, but very people that had a lot of power. For example, Pablo Escobar, the moment the government signed the treaty to extradite all the drug dealers, Pablo Escobar went crazy because he knew that if he was in Colombia and he was caught, which happened when he was caught, to go back, when he was caught in Colombia and he was put in jail, he built his own jail and made it into a five-star luxury resort. And he would come in and out as he pleased. So it wasn't a jail. Like people would, and that's the thing, that Pablo Escobar grew up in like a town next, like one road next to where I lived. And he was very giving to the poor people. So when he grew up poor, and then he became like the wealthiest person in the world. So he gave a lot of money to this town, which was a town of very poor people. So all that town protected him. So he built his jail in that town. He had everybody bought. He had the government bought. Like with money in Colombia, you can do everything. So everything functions. Even today, everything functions with money. Like my driver's license, I didn't go and take a test. I paid somebody and they took the test for me. I got my driver's license. No, I'm not kidding. Like everything in Colombia is with money. Like you have money, you do it. I'm seriously not kidding. I cannot tell you how. Maybe that's why my parents didn't leave, because life is very comfortable in Colombia. You don't go and make lines to do anything. Things are done for you. So if you flip a coin and are lucky, if you're lucky, life is like, you don't have to be a millionaire. You just have to have enough. And life is like, you live like a king. But what changed? So Pablo Escobar went crazy when the extradition bill was signed, because he knew if he was brought here to the States, he would not be able to live in a mansion or be able to pay the government for favors. So he started bombing everything, and then like bombing the government. I don't even remember where everything. I do remember where the bombings began, but he started bombing everything, and that became like a fashion statement. So he started bombing things with car bombs, and then there was like I don't know, a fight, and I don't remember why. There was like, they didn't like each other. The drug lords from Medellin and from Cali just didn't like each other, or had fought with each other because of whatever they did. And they started putting car bombs in each other's cities. So Medellin got bombed, Cali got bombed. Medellin got bombed, Cali got bombed. And then Bogota got bombed because some of the Cali cartel had businesses in Bogota. So one of the businesses that they bombed was the business that made like my Windows crash, with those types of. And in the meantime, they used to be like, the drug lords used to also have dealings with the guerrillas, with like I don't know if you say guerrillas in English. Yeah. Okay, because the guerrillas were the ones that produced the cocaine for them in the jungle. And the guerrillas, to make money for themselves, used to kidnap the wealthy so that they could finance themselves. And it was a very, very like common thing. So every other day there was somebody was either kidnapped or killed. If they didn't like somebody in the government that made a law, they would kill him, like immediately. Like they had the motorcycle killers, and somebody was going to their job, two motorcycle people would go on the street and kill them. Like every other day, there was like very important people, like the major newspaper, for example, used to not write good things about one of the cartels. They bombed the entire newspaper building. Like you couldn't talk, you couldn't speak, you couldn't honk at them. I honked at, like, they had these big trucks. You could recognize them immediately because they were very like you could see they had gold everywhere, and so they had these big trucks. I honked at somebody one time because they just moved in front of me in the car in the wrong place. The person got out of the car with a gun and pointed it at me and said, "What's your problem?" That's the life I had.
Wow.
So that started changing because those big, powerful groups like disseminated. So that you don't see that anymore. And the kidnappings also, like, there was at some point there was a very like a good government, a tough government that started dismantling the guerrilla groups also, and the government made some treaties with some of the guerrilla groups, not all but some, so that the kidnappings also kind of went down. So for for many years, the situation has been better, improved. And there are some places that you can't go, but still, like, there's places that you can go, but still, like not most, no, I won't even go there. Not worth it.
I mean, it's crazy, really, because I think living in a Western country, it's just almost impossible to imagine what that must be like. It's just so far, I mean, that's just so far removed from any reality I have. I mean, I grew up in Italy and it was quite corrupt. Um, but there wasn't, I mean, unless you were like a multi-millionaire, then there might be risks of kidnappings. But, for normal people, it was just not that obvious or that apparent in your sort of day-to-day experiences. I mean, I just can't even relate to what you went through. I just can't even imagine what that would be like. But like not knowing if family members are going to come home, a given day.
I will tell you, a little story of how not paranoid, but how traumatized we are. One day, much later, when I was married with my husband, I was at a restaurant with all my school friends and my husband. We were sitting in a long table, and there was a humongous explosion. All of us went under the table, and my husband stayed like, "What's wrong? What's going on?" He was the only one that was sitting up saying, "What's wrong?" Like, we all thought it was a bomb. All of us were under the table saying, "Okay, the bomb started again." And my husband's like, "What, you guys what's wrong?" And it was like a transformer that had exploded. But that's the mentality. Wow. Like, Colombians were traumatized. We're just completely traumatized. Like, that's the mentality difference. Like, every one of us had.
That's interesting, because I have a friend that was in the military in the UK, and when he left, like, he was part of the UN peacekeeping forces, and he went to like all sorts of places like Kosovo and things like that when the wars were going on. And he had a lot of traumatic experiences, a lot. And we had gone on holiday together. We used to work together and we'd gone on a work trip together and we'd shared a hotel room, not in a romantic way, but just as friends. And he had the most disturbed sleep of anyone I'd ever known. But he told me that one time he was sat around his dinner table with his parents having dinner, and it was like a fireworks night or something. And the fireworks started exploding. He did the exact same thing. He just went under the table, and his dad was like, "Are you okay?" you know. Yeah, so it's interesting, isn't it, that that kind of that stays with you. Wow. Wow. So I guess then my next question would be like, how do you see Bitcoin changing that? And like, why do you think that Bitcoin will change that? So if you can, which, well, I'm not going to say if you can, because I know that you will. So when you distribute this educational program in Colombia, what changes do you expect it to have?
I want to be able to educate the people that have not been educated before about, like, first of all, financial education. Nobody knows anything about financial education. Uh, have have them be conscientious about what's happening in the real world and decide for themselves if they want to invest in Bitcoin or not. And but at least give them the panorama of the world today, because they are the voters of tomorrow. They're the ones that decide who goes in government tomorrow, who doesn't, or what. Like, it's the general population. So I just want to educate the general population on reality, on what reality is, for them to have a vote, have a say, and not be ignorant to what's going on around them. And be able to give them a little bit of just, I really don't want to shove Bitcoin down people's throat. I just want people to have better opportunities by educating them so they can make better choices. And hopefully, on the other hand, have businesses that are willing to come to Colombia and have the ability to have an infrastructure in Colombia so that the unbanked can have the opportunity not to go through the horrible, like, not only the unbanked, but the banked as well, because the underprivileged also, like, they there's so much inequality also in the banking system, like the loans that they get, everything about the banking system, not in Colombia, all over the world, is so unfair. So just have Bitcoin become a form, a type of money, a money system in Colombia, not just a Lightning Network, but as a store of value. I just need to educate so that both the rich and the poor, the rich can come with the infrastructure, and the poor can benefit from what Bitcoin really is, from sound money, and from the scalability of Lightning and what's coming up. I don't know.
That's amazing. Oh gosh, Dalia, this has been such an interesting conversation. I didn't realize we were going to go quite this deep, and I didn't realize like your whole family history. So that really explains a lot as to why you've just got this energy and this drive to do this mission. And I've said this before to you, but I just think it's going to be really incredible looking back in 5 or 10 years time and just see what you've achieved. And I think probably you and I can't even conceive of what that's going to look like right now. But yeah, I mean, I wish you all the best with Colombia. I really hope that we get to meet in person, and I'm hoping it's going to be in El Salvador because I think you're going in November, aren't you? So I'm going to try and do the same. So it'd be really nice to finally meet you in person. And it's just really, I'll be honest, it's such an honor to have met you and to have the opportunity to work with you. And sorry, I'm getting emotional now.
Well, it's the same thing. I'm very honored. And if something does happen worldwide, it's because of people like you, because you're the one that's growing it. So I am as thankful to you, because you're the one that's bringing it and starting that explosion to the world. And you are giving me the opportunity to share it.
Well,
Thank you.
God. We're all just nodes, as Jeff Booth says. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for your time and for just being so generous with everything.
Thank you, Krista. Thank you so much.